This evening, we're officially launching America 250, an enormous year-long nationwide celebration of our heritage. It's really also a celebration of our flag, our great American flag, and our glorious American freedom. Did anybody see the beautiful flag I put up in front of the White House?
All right, President Trump in Iowa on July 3rd discussing the 250th anniversary celebrations of America's independence. And that brings us to The Economist's annual Trends to Watch issue, in which editor Tom Stanges says of the year ahead, you can, quote, expect to hear wildly diverging accounts of America's past, present, and future as Republicans and Democrats describe the same country in irreconcilably different terms to mark the 250th anniversary of its founding. And that is where we are. And Tom joins us now. He's the editor of The Economist's annual The World Ahead issue. If we could talk a little bit about that theme, how wildly different are these points of view in terms of our past?
Well, I mean, I think this is what everyone's been talking about for quite a while, right? I mean, when was the real founding, and how much attention should be paid to aspects of America's history like slavery and so forth. And I think what's really striking about the forthcoming 250th celebrations is that there are going to be two rival organizing committees. So Donald Trump didn't like the original one that I think was set up by George W. Bush, and so he's got his own rival one. But the most striking thing for me is the fact that there's going to be a cage fight on the lawn of the White House as part of the celebrations, and this isn't even a metaphor at this point, is it? It's just sort of a reenactment of American politics, or at least that's how it looks from where I'm sitting.
Yeah, I'm trying to block that out, actually. So let's talk about some of the other topics on your list. You talk about a geopolitical drift. This one really interests me for a number of reasons, especially given my upbringing. What's going to change?
Well, I think we're all looking for a neat explanation and a neat way to think about the world now. It's clear that the old sort of rules-based order has gone, and sort of old treaties have been torn up, and old alliances have been walked away from. And so, when Joe Biden was around, he talked about the fight between democracy and autocracy, and that was how he framed American foreign policy and its role in the world. And we haven't had that kind of clarity from Donald Trump, who just prefers to go with instinct and with transactional approach to things. And that can pay dividends, we've, as you can see, for example, in Gaza, but it can also mean that everybody is completely they're not sure what to expect from him. And I think, where America stands on what's going to happen in Venezuela is we're hearing a lot from the administration about our hemisphere. It sounds as though he wants to go to a world where China, America, and Russia are all kind of agree to leave each other alone, and then they can all do whatever they like in their own backyards. But we haven't actually had that spelt out. So I think this whole question of sort of what is the new geopolitical paradigm is what has a lot of people scratching their heads. And the answer is there isn't a simple answer, because Donald Trump doesn't like, he doesn't think in those sorts of terms. He prefers to go on instinct and go with his gut.
Yeah, and Tom, to that point, one of your other items on the list is how this is China's opportunity to make inroads elsewhere on the globe. But I want to actually take a beat to talk about, you mentioned Gaza. There is a very fragile ceasefire there. There are still elements of violence. But you note war or peace in your question mark, and your answer is yes, because there's such conflict elsewhere in the globe, Ukraine, and then some places that are simply not getting the attention they deserve in the West, including Sudan.
Yes, so obviously Sudan is the big one, biggest humanitarian crisis in the world, and that conflict is still going on. I think if Donald Trump is serious about the Nobel Peace Prize, that's looking at that part of the world might be where he wants to intervene. Incidentally, one of the things keeping the war in Sudan going is gold, and it's the flow of gold which sort of is benefiting the participants and their backers in this. And we know how much Donald Trump loves gold, so maybe there's some way he can impose a deal on everyone there. But I think the other thing about it is, aside from these conflicts that you can see where there are people shooting at each other and fighting over particular particular pieces of land. What we're seeing at the moment is an increase in grey zone conflict, hybrid conflict, where Russia is meddling in northern Europe and China is meddling in the South China Sea, and they are they're doing things that aren't actually acts of war, but they're doing flyovers, or they're sending drones, or they're cutting cables on the sea floor, and so a lot of this sort of contest is happening in this new way where it's happening in the global commons, on the high seas, it's happening on the sea floor, it's happening in cyberspace. It's going to be increasingly happening in space as well. Russia is developing new space-based weapons. Donald Trump wants to build the Golden Dome. So the old ideas that we have about war, where you declare war and then you try and invade someone else's country, that's not how war works anymore. And there was a very nice quote from Mark Rutte, the head of NATO, who said that we're not at war with Russia, but we're not at peace either.
So, Tom, let's combine numbers 6 and 7 here on your list. 6, because they are so intrinsically linked. 6, economic worries. 7, concerns over AI.
Exactly. So we have big worries about the economy next year, and there are two sources of a possible economic crisis. The first is a bond market crisis, and in America that really depends on who replaces Jerome Powell as the head of the Federal Reserve, and what will the markets think about that replacement. Will they be too concerned that this is somebody who'll do whatever Donald Trump wants and will cut rates and make it easier for the government to borrow and so forth? So that's a potential trigger point there. And then the other is AI. Will the AI bubble burst? We've seen share prices coming down this week, and lots of people. The weird thing is, everyone talks about this and says it's a bubble, even the people in the industry. So if there is if the bubble does burst, it will be like the most widely predicted stock market crash ever, because everyone's kind of assuming it's going to happen. But they're also talking about this. Sam Altman of OpenAI sort of implies, yes, it's a bubble, but not his company is sensibly valued. It's the other companies you need to worry about. And if there is a drop there, a lot of Americans have wealth in the stock market. More, in fact, of American household wealth is in the stock market now than was the case at the height of the dot-com boom. And so that will mean that people feel a lot poorer, and they will spend less if the stock market drops. And it will also have wider effect globally as well, because it will mean that it will affect the way trade works, and imports that would have gone to America will go elsewhere. So that's actually the cover of The Economist this week, and we are really keeping a very close eye on that 36.
All right, we'll be waiting for it. The Economist, Tom Standage, thank you so much. The new piece is online now for everyone to see. Thank you, Tom. And speaking of